Welcome to the LongView with Pensacola Mayor D.C. Reeves. This is where we expand on news, views, what ifs, and what Pensacola could be for future generations. Take a seat and enjoy the LongView. Hi, I'm Shannon Nickinson, and welcome to the LongView. This is our moment with the mayor, longer moments with the mayor than we usually have. Mayor D.C. Reeves, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Glad to try to put a little more detail on some of these important things happening in the city.
Absolutely. We know that life moves pretty fast, and if you don't stop every once in a while and look around, you could miss something, and that's what we want the LongView to be. We want this to be the time where we give you a little extra context about things that you may have seen flow through your news feed or blow past your Instagram while you're scrolling. So we want to give you a couple minutes, a little bit of thoughtful discussion about some of the bigger projects that we have going on, so that you can kind of understand the why behind what's happening. So that's what we're here for.
Yeah, excited to talk about one thing we really have prided ourselves on in the last 3.5 years is being able to get a lot of these big capital projects up and going across the city. So I know we're going to talk specifically about some of the Parks and Rec ones this time, which again has been a transformational time in terms of capital projects. But we won't get into the airport terminal and the port grants that are coming in and the job opportunities that are coming in. And I said when we got in here that we were going to get real urgent in the city of Pensacola about getting some of these things across the finish line. I feel like that's what this form of government, this strong mayor form of government, it provides, and what should be expected from the citizen is that when they elect somebody in this office, and you're ultimately the day-to-day CEO operator of the city, that we move with intentionality, move with urgency. So doing the best that we can to take on and whack as many moles as there are that come up in 18 city departments in a 55,000 person city, and so we've certainly been proud of that, and looking forward to highlighting some of those.
For sure. Well, with 18 departments, there definitely is no lack of moles to whack. Yeah, that is for sure. But all of these things, I think those capital improvements that you talked about, they all feed into this same the same desire to make our city more livable, a wonderful place to live, work, and play, as they say, a place for our seniors to feel safe and our kids to grow and thrive. And important part of that is taking care of what we have. And Direction 25 is an infrastructure investment campaign that's all about taking care of what we have. I did not know until recently that Direction 25 is not an arbitrary number. It actually represents 40 years of deferred maintenance on, and the last time there was a real concerted effort to invest in the city's infrastructure is 1985, and that is 40 years ago. That is a pre-local option sales tax world, which is a revenue stream we're very grateful to have now. But many of those things that we built and stood up and took care of in 1985, they might have a wrinkle or two.
Right, exactly, and unfortunately, that's what happens in city government sometimes. Is you get enamored with only building the new things, and
everyone loves a ribbon cutting.
Right, exactly, but less so about maintaining the things that we have. So we've made a real concerted effort at that. You're right. It was intentional to call it Direction 25. Direction 85, ironically, was when City Hall was built. Downtown was part of Direction 85. Bay Bluffs Park, ironically, that now is closed. And fortunately, we'll give an update on that we've got a couple $1 million that we're grant funded to be able to fix Bay Bluffs Park, to make it habitable for people to not get hurt or worse with broken planks and all of the different issues that we've had there on an eroding bluff. So that's why we called it that. We were very intentional about that, to say, hey, 40 years later, here's $22 million that we're putting into the city across actually every city council district, all 7. Lots of it in Parks and Rec, obviously. And we wanted this to be holistic, not just in how many dollars we could spend at major projects like Bay Bluffs Park or like Fricker Center, which is about $10 million. It's that'll be a new, renovated, but really a new community center on the west side. Was also the little things, and what I mean is the park benches, the water fountains. That was something coming into office, and really as just a kid growing up here, that I just always assumed that when I went to a park in the city, the water fountain didn't work, right? I keep saying I don't want kids to have the same presumption growing up here now, and so you're not just defined by your Direction 85. You're not just defined by the big things you do. It's how do you maintain those little things. So from taking all the most used basketball courts in the city and redoing those to water fountains, to park benches, to dog parks that we've already renovated and added new amenities to make them more enjoyable. It all comes back to really the same concept that you just hit on, which I really consider myself a place-making economic developer. And what I mean is, I don't care what party you are, how old you are, how young you are. At the end of the day, we envision wanting to be a city that we like living in and our kids and grandkids want to live in. That's what we think of whether it's public safety, whether it's the amenities. And so it's really, I think, a very sound investment that when we invest or reinvest in things in the city that provide quality of life, that make it a more attractive place to live, not only does that pay an immediate dividend to the citizen who is funding those renovations, repairs, whatever, but it also is an attractor for when, like all of our friends, I hope they do this with you guys out there, when they come in town for Thanksgiving and say, man, I could imagine living here, or, hey, my son moved back or visited after college and, thought he wanted to live in a big city and now he wants to move back. I'm always happy to hear those stories and I hear them more and more often. So that's why I think, other than the obvious, which is we want nicer stuff and we want stuff to work when we go to the park. We all know that. Yeah. But think of that kind of second level that's what this investment's about is this is providing primarily for the citizen and secondarily to say, hey, this is a city that we're proud of, that we want you to be proud of when you're talking to your kids and grandkids about moving home here one day.
Yeah, I like to think of it, as a ladder. If we've got to invest in the rungs at the bottom for the rest of progress to be made. And I'm glad that you started out kind of talking about what I will call the little things at parks. Like everyone, as I joked with you, right? Everyone loves a ribbon cutting, but the things that touch people every day are things like those water fountains that you thought as a kid always didn't work. And I just wanted to share a little bit. We've resurfaced at least 6 basketball courts, fully resurfaced and repaired upwards of 24 more. We have 21 water fountains, 264 benches, 140 picnic tables, all new, all rehabbed, all ready for family picnics and kiddie birthday parties and family reunions and book clubs and soccer moms hanging out and baseball moms sitting around waiting out. Yep. The next round of whatever tournament they are enmeshed in at Roger Scott. And those things, that's stuff that people touch every single day. Right. And they may not notice it unless it's broken or bad or somebody gets a splinter or the bathroom doesn't work or what. But I really think those things are as important as the stuff that gets a big headline.
I agree. I feel like I always go back to, and I can't break this habit, and I think it's a good thing for our city, which is, when I was in private business, which is, what does the customer see? What does the customer see? And I said that probably 1 million times in my first year here, and I'm certainly proud. I feel like our team has really responded to that, and that we take even stronger initiative than before about what the customer sees and being proactive about solving those issues. The same way you guys probably do when you're out and about in the city. I want you to know that our city administrators, I personally, if I see a light bulb that doesn't match in one of the city parks, I send a note along. I test every water fountain that walks by. And we got a couple on the list right now. We are not perfect, but just know that's not because our staff doesn't want to work at it or that they do. I mean, they're very diligent about, but the blessing has a little bit of a curse, which is that we have 95 parks and we have 11 community centers in a city that's 22 square miles of landmass. And to put that in perspective, the city of New York right now is striving to have every one of its citizens live within 10 minutes of a park. Multi-billion-dollar effort, obviously large city, huge population. But the point is, we already have that.
Yeah.
So what a blessing that all of you, if you live in the city limits, you live within a 10-minute walk of a park. What that also means is that's 95 big lawns to cut. That's 72 playgrounds to replace on a recurring basis at multiple $100,000. That's 11 community centers that are buildings that need AC units and roofs and your normal
windows
upkeep
and all that.
Yeah, wind rated windows that need to be able to withstand 140 miles an hour, ADA compliance and access, and so that blessing comes with a real responsibility. And so I'm proud of really two changes. Number one is taking on this "what does the customer see" approach. And listen, there's somebody out listening to us during their workout or watching us on here saying, "Oh man, I went by my park last week and this was broken." Call 311. That is literally, you put the onus on us to fix it. So I am not declaring all water fountains, parks, and picnic tables at all 95 parks are in perfect condition. The point is it's an ongoing battle. It's an ongoing process when you have that much to take care of. But I completely realize and sympathize with the fact that, you know what, whatever park is closest to you as a city resident is the one that's most important to you. And so while we might have 95 to be juggling all at once, certainly you guys have eyes and ears. We don't have enough employees to drive to every single one of those twice a day. But getting that feedback from our residents when something doesn't look right or something's out, I just want you to know, not only do we encourge that, I do it myself. I said I can't help myself because
I can attest.
Is to say, what does the customer see? So that's why you're right. Little things, it might not be a park bench you notice or a picnic table you notice, but I think it's important for our citizens to know that this is a overarching concerted effort to start taking these things seriously, not waiting till they break and then replacing one time. We're saying, let's go identify where all these weak spots are. And so we've had a great push with Direction 25, but again, it's a work in progress. There'll be something tomorrow and there'll be something next week. And we certainly always encourage and lean on our citizens to call 311, let us know if something doesn't look right or isn't working at your park, and we'll get on it.
That feeds into, I think it's hard to that's a big lift, that first investment, right? When you want to tackle maintenance that's been put off for a long time. And it can feel like, God, we're not, like, where's the new stuff?
Right.
Where's the, like, we used to, hear about this groundbreaking and that, whatever, but being the adults in the room, right? That we have to have the conversation that says, like, well, we need to take care of the things that we have. And even some of those larger renovations, like when we get new play equipment at Dunwoody Park, or we get the Sanders Beach boat ramp project up and running right now, getting the boat ramp up or the kayak ramp up and improving ADA accessibility. All of those things add up in a way that I think is more, I don't want to say more substantive than a nice big brand new something, because nice big brand new somethings are really important. I think new somethings like Alice Williams Childcare or the Fricker Center, which is going to be totally redone and just beautiful when it opens in 27. I'm so excited for the community to see that. Saving the Cobb Center, all those things are important things.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I promise whoever the next mayor or two or three after me I can't predict too far in advance, but I could pretty much tell you that I certainly hope that 10, 12, 16, 20 years from now, that the things that we put in place, I don't mean even just the dollars we spent, but the structure that we put in place holds where no mayor has to go through the first couple years of difficult decisions of having to close Bay Bluff Park. Fricker Center had a 6-figure bill on it with electrical to the point where we almost couldn't have people in there. Now imagine having that issue and it being a 40 or 50-year-old building, and the west side of our city really not having anywhere to go for after school or for senior activities and things like that, we were able to jump on, and our grants office, shout out to the grants office,
Absolutely.
is $200 million in 3 years. I mean, couldn't have asked for more. That's the only reason we were able to get the money for Babelis Park, for Fricker Center, is just hustling to find those dollars that are pertinent to these things, and so how we've made up for a lack of long-term planning of maintenance. And I can get into details of that in a second. That's how we ultimately cut the corner to be able to save and now revitalize many of these things. It wasn't because we had a budget sitting around that we didn't spend.
Right,
there was
exactly.
nothing in the budget. We actually just started working our tails off to find grants and to find those more creative and unconventional ways to get Fricker and Cobb Center and Babelis Park funded, and off of dire straits. Malcolm Young was too far gone, but Cobb Center we were able to save. Had to spend $1.7 million to just make sure that didn't see the same fate, because there was nothing in the budget to fix that. There was nothing in the budget for Babelis Park. There was nothing in the budget for Fricker, and so not only have we, I hope, built the groundwork for future administrations to be able to ensure that they won't get surprised and really torpedoed by these major 7-figure do it now or else situations, because that's not a responsible. I don't think that's responsible on behalf of the taxpayer, is to say they made these investments at whatever which time, 20, 25 years ago, 10 years ago. And that we respect those investments that are made by making sure that we have an eye on maintenance. So one other important thing that citizens probably don't follow that might be interesting to you is we created a facilities department. That didn't exist when we got here. Same way a grants office didn't exist.
Right. I think those two, talk a little bit more about those two things, especially because that's definitely a value add to being a good steward of the responsibility taxpayers and trust in us.
Yeah, I mean, when I got into office, and I assume it's been this way, for many, many years. This isn't one particular person or administration. I just think that was trying to bring, again, a little bit more of a business mindset to represent your taxpayer dollars wisely. Was we actually were empowering individual departments, whether they had facilities expertise or not, to be in charge. So Parks and Rec was in charge of maintaining community centers. Fire department was in charge of maintaining fire stations. Not that their efforts weren't diligent and noble, but you don't want me in charge. I don't know how to maintain a community center. So why would D.C. be in charge of maintaining? I'm going to find someone that knows how to maintain that, knows what to look out for, and ultimately that's what we've set up now for the taxpayers. Is we have Russell Sweat does a great job. We have a separate facilities department where it is now with expertise. We have electrical. We have HVAC and plumbing expertise now on site, so we know when we can fix something and we know when we have to call in someone else. So that saves real taxpayer dollars. We're not wasting money on just hiring random people and then them saying, hey, does this look good? And then someone in the department being like, yeah, it looks good to me. Yeah, and it may not. And so just what we would expect with our own dollars is that if you're going to call the HVAC person, you want it to be fixed, and you want it to be fixed for a long period of time. And so I really think that's a net tax savings, really, to make sure that we have expertise in the room. So our facilities department, we've put in now, for example, Maritime Park, same thing. Since its existence, it's now a 16-year-old stadium. Yeah. There has never been an established 10-year plan that when an AC goes out, we know in 4 or 5 years we need to have a certain amount of money. Right. And so those, again, that's not as fun or as exciting as cutting a ribbon, but the reality is we want these amenities to stay quality for our citizens for a much longer period of time. So just know as we've been working in City Hall is to set up the infrastructure to say, hey, not only is this amenity going to be something that you get to enjoy, it's something that you'll get to enjoy for a little bit longer, and it'll be nice for a little bit longer because we're keeping an eye on it. And so I certainly hope now, after these 3.5 years, we've jumped from the 5-alarm fires that were these first year or two of saying you have to shut it down or someone's going to get hurt. Right. Now we've moved, and it feels like now we've kind of tipped to we've got caught up on all of these 5 alarm fires, and we hopefully are setting it up for the future that we will know well in advance and save your money. I mean, that's your money. Wouldn't you rather the fix be $100,000 than $500,000? And that's what happens when you let it get too far. And so there's a real cost savings to being proactive in maintenance. And so I can certainly tell you we've been on top of that, whether it be park benches or whether it be community centers, that we've tried to be on top of that as possible.
So a couple big items that are still outstanding and to do on that list, I know, is Hollis T. Williams. We still have to get that up off the ground, and the much discussed Bay Bluffs Park, which we are just perilously close to being on the move.
You'll see both of those you probably turning dirt next year. You might see some dirt turning at Hollis T. Williams this year, and that was part of about $40 million in grant funding to take the 1.3 miles under the interstate. We're going to get phase 1 done. It'll be the largest infrastructure investment in the history of the city's stormwater, 1.2 million gallons, and that was Hurricane Sally CDBG money, NERDA money, and others. And so when you talk about, God forbid, we were to have a major hurricane, something like that, this would be an enormous benefit to that east side neighborhood, the North Hill neighborhood, the downtown corridor that we saw how terrible the flooding was because of a lot of it coming from that Long Hollow Pond area in 2014 with the big storm then. And so we're excited about that. And then Bay Bluffs Park, we were able to see $2 million. I will say the one grants test your patience. I can tell you that. So grants are good.
Yeah, but big shout out to the grants department.
Exactly. Yes. But they absolutely test your patience by no fault of our amazing grant staff and finance staff. But ultimately, when you get money from the federal government or the state government, it comes with a bajillion rules too. Just as an example, I believe we got the Bay Bluffs $2 million, which Conservation Florida, thank you. Yes. State legislature, thank you for supporting that. So we had to wait until April 21st of this year. So it was a little less than 2 years from getting it awarded and actually being able to legally spend $1. Like we couldn't have designed something before April 21st. If we did, we would have had to pay for it your city taxpayer dollars would have to go to that instead of something else at a different park. And so that just shows you basically a year and a half of red tape waiting on DEP and others to clear us. No one did anything wrong, but that's just how grants go. And so and this is Bay Bluffs is not a special outlier there. No. There's many. So when you hear, we got a grant for that, I heard we got a grant. Trust me, it isn't because we're sitting on our hands. We're usually raring and ready to go. It's just a matter of working through a lot of different logistics. So very excited the fact that we'll ramp up the conversations around Bay Bluffs this fall. We'll probably go to bid for have design done and bids for construction probably spring of 27, and then obviously work right there happening soon after. So, but. Design will be that fun part where we get to engage as a community and say, now $2 million is a lot of money. We're not going to build. There's no Taj Mahal that's going to be going on Scenic Highway. Not like that house that we're talking about. Not that one, but the down on the north part of Scenic Highway. But there will be no big structure. I mean, $2 million ultimately is going to be the repair, replenishment of the boardwalk areas, maybe some other little primitive trails or something like that. Right. So to curb expectations, there's not going to be something significant, but we'll squeeze every ounce of value we can.
Yeah, and part of the beauty of the Bluffs is that it's a little more low key, right? There's not a big to do.
Yeah,
it's a way for you to experience that natural beauty pretty close to its intended state.
Right. Yeah, it's not. The idea is not to clear it out, and the challenge of it, is you're rebuilding stuff on an eroding bluff. I mean, so you say that's why again I caution $2 million is not going to be something enormously new but we can certainly modernize the experience. It was built 40 years ago in Direction 85. I'm sure we can modernize the experience, maybe expand some areas up top to, picnic and gather and things like that.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that conversation during that design process. So you'll see some activity basically in this fall, and then probably a 5-6 month process from this fall to the next spring. That will be the community engagement, design, all of that, and then get a shovel in the ground. And again, because it's also not a major project, I don't think it'll be a major construction time period,
Right.
because it won't be a new building or something
Yeah.
like that. But looking forward to it. And I always joke, folks will stop me on the street and say, "When's Babe Loves Park happening?" And I said, "Trust me, nobody's less patient about it than me, because we had to close it in an unfortunate, unforeseen situation that we inherited.
But it wasn't safe.
Right, and we weren't going to wait for a kid to get hurt or killed to decide to close something. And so I feel for our Parks and Rec staff that's got the same questions that I get, and I feel for our community. I grew up. I'll get regaled with stories of growing up here and going there with your kids and all that. And I spent many a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade going to school off Bayou Boulevard, days between basketball practice and school, goofing off down, going down.
You were goofing off, Mayor?
Hanging around the train tracks or whatever you weren't supposed to do, get in the water or whatever. But we all have those childhood memories of enjoying ourselves at Bay Bluffs Park, and so I'm just as impatient, and I'm just excited that we have a light at the end of the tunnel and non-city taxpayer dollars that are going to help us get it done.
Right. That's I think that's important for folks to remember too. We're leveraging assets from different buckets of funding. We've talked in other episodes about the constraints that come with certain buckets of funding, and you can't just take money from one and put it in the other freely. This influx of grant money is an important supplementation to our overall financial picture, and it comes with a couple of strings, so we need our patience. But
we do. But just know, at the end of the day, we get as creative as we can to provide the best amenities that we can. The Sun Trail coming to Bayfront Parkway, for example, there was just another public meeting with FDOT. Thanks to Senator Broxson and Senator Pasadoma, we were able to get $6 million to have a divided 12-foot pathway, that pedestrian and bike pathway, from the 3 Mile Bridge all the way into the port. I mean, that's a major amenity for walkers and runners and bikers, and that we never had before. We have that little small sidewalk that we've had for decades that goes right along the edge, and that doesn't feel the safest in many
not
places.
when you're passing somebody,
But for example, we would never have $6.4 million or whatever the cost is up to now, sitting in the city's general fund. There's not enough tax revenue in a local government for that. So you have to go, you really kind of kick every tire you can. And that's why we spend a lot of time in Tallahassee. That's why we work with our lobbyists and everybody else to again, pound the pavement and try to figure out how we can bring those amenities. So all the ones we've talked about today, every single one of them has outside dollars that come from somewhere else. And that's how we're able to have such significant change and have these new amenities and these complete overhauls, is because we're able to find dollars from somewhere else. So we'll keep doing that, and because we know that that's how we're going to get these things funded and fixed. And again, keep the same. I remind everybody: call 311, email me, DC Reeves at City of Pensacola. We want these to be the best facilities. We want you to be proud of them when you're there. And so, we're excited to keep that always ongoing effort going.
Always.
And we're always have our ear to the ground to make sure it's working for you.
Yeah. I think that in public service and government service, you have an obligation to leave it better than you inherited it. I think philosophically that's our purpose as, people and humans and parents and all that, to leave something in better shape than you found it, so that the next generation, the folks who come behind you, can enjoy it for just as long, for another 40 years. So Direction Direction
65.
65?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going to be on the table for that, I wonder?
I don't know. I can't wait to email the mayor, and come up with like my 100 ideas of what what I want.
I'm sure they'll keep the bat phone open for you.
Exactly. I'll be as patient as I can. I won't be too disgruntled in my email tone, but
you promise? You promise?
I'll try.
Do your
I've got 40 years. Yeah, they'll dig this up, and say you promised to be nice to us. But no, exactly. We want to set this up to make everybody happy with the amenities that they get, and that we set ourselves up in the next administrations and the next councils for success. And even more so, it's why you do this job to begin with, is that it's the sense of purpose of this is, I can speak for me, and I would think the council, all our council members, our staff have the same, some type of some story or something that resonates with them that's like, hey, this is beyond just looking for something to do. This is like, hey, we can have an impact on, for me, the community where I'm from, and so there is no greater purpose than leaving it better than you found it. If I didn't feel like we could do that, then I shouldn't be doing this. Is that I hope after my years of service that we're able to point to those things and say, hey, we got that done. Yeah. That was better than it was before, and I think that's the North Star for anybody in this job, in an elected office especially, to try to do the right thing and try to make the best Pensacola we can.
All right. Well, we'll be keeping a list for Direction 65.
That's right. Send those in.
Send those in as well, and we'll be sure to save those for the next for the mayor.
That might be a robot.
2065. It might be a robot.
Yeah, some
type
of
or something.
Exactly. It might be some robot you'll have to, or you'll just think it and it will know it right when you do it.
Have the neural link. Just send it directly to someone else.
Yeah. Who would have thought? In Direction 85, they probably didn't think we'd be talking about the things we were. So
but that's true. That's true. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate your time and appreciate everybody listening and tuning in. And we will catch you next time.